Hi, I'm David King, the editor and associate publisher of The Collaborative. I'm joined by Katie Cusack, editor, and Deanna Fox, pretty well-known food writer in the region who just keeps picking up more gigs and more projects. I mean, I think it's astonishing to see how ubiquitous you've become in the last few years. Obviously well-deserved, but I'd love to talk to you about, generally how you got started and how it's turned into this larger sort of unstoppable thing, it feels.
Yeah, it does feel unstoppable. I feel like it's never going to end and I'll never sleep. So I'm just running on fumes at this point, but all thankful for all of it. Yeah.
So we've talked in the past about how you sort of got into this, but can you delve into a little bit about how you transitioned? Because I find that just so intriguing about how you got into food writing.
So I originally worked in politics, as we've discussed before, and worked in lobbying and campaign management, PAC, campaign finance stuff, and writing. I did a lot of writing because I went to college for history and political science, where all you do is write and write and write. So I had that, but I had a blog, like in the early days of blogging, because I think the year that I went into college, I think that's the year that Facebook hit. So this was like back LiveJournal days. Like I don't think I ever had a MySpace account, but I grew up on a farm and food was always around. My aunt had a restaurant, a small diner. She took an old farmhouse, turned the first floor into a little diner, opened from like 6 to 3, 6 days a week. And the rule was you could not just hang out in there. You had to be working. So I was like shoveling. Everybody was poor. We couldn't even afford like cooling trays. So we just laid newspaper out and would put like cookies on newspaper to let them cool. So I remember doing that and just always being around food. My mother used to confuse a smoke alarm with the kitchen timer. So she would tell everybody she cooked Cajun. It was blackened. It was Cajun. It wasn't burnt. So I just got tired of it. So, excuse me, one day I was just like, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10. I was just like, I'm going to do this now because I can't stand another burnt roast. So I just started off with like stir fries and spaghetti and that kind of thing. So I was always cooking. But I went to college, took like my jam pot with me and made money in college by ironing people's clothes and like making jam, selling people jam.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. The third floor of Brubacher Hall at St. Rose. Yeah. Crazy that people also didn't know how to iron their own clothes. So.
Yeah, that's funny. It's also funny that so many people needed jam, but also nice that they like had a local person to go to.
Well, there was a stretch that had of O'Leary, was that the road? I think that was where Partridge ran, that block behind Albany High. I think it was called O'Leary. And there was a fence that had Concord grapes that grew up it.
Whoa.
So it was like, buy sugar and then you're done. Cheap. Yeah. Some jars. So yeah, that was just for fun. I just brought that, I think, more as novelty than anything else. But so yeah, I was working in politics in Albany, worked on a couple of campaigns, and was just kind of dabbling in this stuff. I'd bought an old farmhouse and was kind of exploring, the farm to table movement and everything else, all these new fad ideas that really weren't, but that were popular at the time. And there was an editor that I knew who was just like, hey, like you should write about this professionally. And I was kind of looking to transition out of politics because I got tired of taking 3 showers a day and always feeling dirty. So transitioned towards, I had my first kid and put another year in. And when I got pregnant with the second, I was like, you know what, like I got to do something else. So started writing kind of more seriously about that, and it took off from there. So it was kind of little stepping stones along the way, little, bricks that you take to build up the next platform, and then having somebody who's like, hey, go do, and then you do. Yeah. So, yeah. And then just a lot of hustle from there. Yeah. And
I mean, just listening to your schedule and knowing how many things you're working on from minute to minute now, can you tell us a little bit how you built up your workload? And I mean, now you're working for doing work for some pretty major publications, as well as essentially all the local publications everyone knows you from. What was the grind like to get there?
Yeah, I mean, bugging people, just a lot of relentless bugging, and going back to the jam method and like sending editors I think orange marmalade. I think that's where I started, in the mail, because I just got tired of.
That would do it for me. Marmalade is
labor intensive. That's no joke. But just finding, and this was like really before a lot of social media was really like taking hold. Like some people were just starting to get on Twitter.
Yeah.
So finding people, it was a lot harder to find people, but it was also easier to cut through because there wasn't just as much din, there wasn't as much noise, so you could make a bigger impact. And just constantly, the first couple of years I was making no money, and I kind of measured my success and how much, how many cups of coffee I was buying people that week. Just like anybody who would have mercy in 30 minutes where I could buy them lunch or coffee, just doing that and just kind of building up a circle of people. This amazing local woman, Christina Davis, started this website called From Scratch Club, and we did food swaps, and then we had this amazing website. And I think there's maybe at its peak 12 contributors, and I was one of them, and just using that as a platform to get to other places, started writing for the Times Union. Times Union transitioned into working with WAMC and the Gazette, and then you have this, and Oliver Albany. God bless.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That was so shocking.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that was
yeah.
a lot.
That was a real bummer.
Yeah.
But just building up a local base and kind of finding, I think working, everything that I've ever engaged in up to this point has really given me some sort of skill set that helped me as a writer. And definitely working in the political end of things gave me, and working in some social justice causes and things like that, gave me a really unique perspective on food writing. I wasn't just developing recipes. I wasn't just sitting there and trying to be Martha Stewart or, just talk about fads and food critique. Like, I think what most people think food writing is. Food is just, for me, has always just been the vehicle in which I tell a bigger story. So I kind of approach everything as like a XYZ. So it's about X is told through Y in a Z. So when I go back to, I think that people knew me a lot by was the Thanksgiving dinner story at Night Moves. Yeah. Going to a strip club to eat turkey. Yeah, great. Why not? Why not? So it wasn't really about Thanksgiving.
People talking.
And it wasn't really about strip clubs. It was about loneliness.
No, it never really is about the strip club. But people only focus on the strip club.
They do. So
I feel you.
It was about loneliness as told through Thanksgiving dinner at a strip club in a newspaper article.
Yeah.
So I've always been able to use food to talk about bigger issues.
Yeah, and why? I mean, I find your work intriguing is because it does generally touch on social justice or different cultural aspects that you might not be thinking about, what most people aren't paying attention to. And I think it stands out among, obviously, a very crowded field.
Yeah.
And it seems to get more crowded by the day. But, I have to admit the other food writer who I really like locally, although I can't remember her name right now, from the TU, who is just absolutely brutal.
Susie
Davis and Powell.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Just, if I want context and fun and in-depth stories, I read you, and then if I want to see someone massacred in a newspaper, I read her. But.
I know. Well, they picked somebody good because she's like very British, and she's very like, very beautiful and thin and blonde. It does not have the appearance of being somebody who might shank you in a dark alleyway. But.
And that's what it is. You're reading shanking, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It is like it's amazing.
It's brutal.
Yeah. But I. Right now, a lot of things that people are talking about, I see other writers kind of dabble into. So immigration, right? Immigrant food. God,
Right.
if I hear ethnic cuisine one more time, Jesus, it's all ethnic cuisine. But people are talking about, because they're talking about it from a bunch of ends. They're talking about, immigrant groups are coming in and starting restaurants, or where they're getting their food, or, ICE raids in restaurants and that kind of thing. So you see a lot of people doing that, and they kind of, branch into the food media beat. The big thing now with hemp and marijuana and that being incorporated into food. Yeah. That's a big one. Really so popular. You have a lot of science writers and environmental writers that are going into the food. So it can be really difficult. It does get really crowded and busy, and you have to kind of get turfy, kind of claim your spot. But you gotta have a good angle, and you gotta know how to pitch and go from there.
And you've been traveling recently too, right? I mean, these stories have taken you all over the place. What's the most interesting thing you've done lately? What have you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have started to travel more, and more of it is because having the funds to do it, which is nice, and also that my children are a little bit older. So I don't think my children knew that there were front doors to restaurants for the first few years of their life, because they were just always coming with me on assignment.
Yeah.
Before they went into public school. But a couple of years ago, I traveled kind of up US Route 1 through coastal Florida into Georgia. I was exploring these fish camps, which are this dying breed of American restaurant, which are amazing. There are a lot of former slaves, sharecropping families on the coast, a lot of former rice plantation slaves who had access to fish, and they knew how to cook fish. And then they would start these little shacks where basically it's family style. You pay like $7. You can bring in your own beer, and you sit and you eat hush puppies and whatever the local fish that day is, whether it's catfish if you're more inland, or whiting or whatever. But a lot of those coastal communities are just being taken over by condos and real estate and everything else, all the coastal, and then just natural disasters. So it's kind of this dying thing. But this past year, I went to the Basque Country, so Spain and France, which was unbelievable.
A lot.
Unbelievable. The people were incredible. The food was insane, and just how food is so seamlessly incorporated, and food used as a political system, because so much, when Franco was dictator, so much of how the culture of the Basque people was demolished was through food and wine and language. So, and then I was also in Qatar last year, like you do. So,
like you do.
Yeah. So that was also interesting.
On the grind.
Yeah, right. A long flight, but well worth it. Yeah. So,
what are some of your favorite things to write about right now? I mean, I guess comparing what you started out writing about and coming from a food family, how has it developed over time?
Yeah, I think I've just become more astute and a little. I think I've become a quicker writer. That's always been my problem, is that I'm not a fast writer. I have a hard time with hot takes because I just don't do them because I'm not fast. But I think that I've developed a better sense of who to go to as a source for a story. So that's made my writing a little bit more rounded, better sources, and then also just a little bit quicker because I know exactly where to go. But I feel like I'm still writing basically about the same things that I had been writing about, still writing about it from the food systems, food politics, social justice, economic, environmental aspect. But then I also write fluff, like 10 best hot chocolates in the capital region, because it's a career. I have to make money.
Yeah.
So you have to fill in the gaps.
For sure.
But there's so many, I'm always worried. I'm like, did I just write my last pitch? Is there any other angle that's ever going to come up? And there always is something. Yeah, you can always find something. Yeah. So, yeah.
Is that something that you learned, especially recently with all the traveling, kind of learning those different angles and finding, because there's so many different people and everybody has their own perspective on food and their own opinions? Do you find through conversation that helps you with angles, or? Definitely.
Yeah. And just, being a freelancer, you want to get the story written as quickly as possible. But, editors are so backed up too that it's hard to get an answer from people. So sometimes you have to send things out basically in a multiple submission, and it can't really be the same pitch for everybody. You have to learn ways that you can tailor your pitches to fit certain publications, take the same general story and kind of recreate it in different ways. But definitely just being boots on the ground, and when you go on a press trip or you go away or something, not just listening to what the FLAC wants you to see. Stop. I ate this thing. I still didn't even know what it was. I ate this huge, it was almost like a crepe. It was somewhere between a crepe and a cracker when I was in Doha, Qatar. And this lady was just making them, and she had a full abaya, burqa on. How she was even cooking in that thing, I have no idea. But I'm just watching her, And I'm like, I'm going to eat that. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I think that she's putting mayonnaise and potato chips on something, so I'm going to eat that. So it was just this huge, it was like a crepe, basically the same way you would make a crepe. And then she just slathered on mayonnaise and took a bag of sour cream and cheddar cheese potato chips and crushed them up and put it on it and folded it like a crepe and then just handed it over. And it was like, all right, so that's something. Now I see other people who are doing this, so I need to go explore what that is and not just eat in these high-end celebrity chef restaurants.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be willing to kind of go out and eat the weird stuff.
Right, what people are actually eating and not just presenting to you to eat.
Right.
Such a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And food is like the best communicator because everyone can do it. And I think that's why food media gets so congested. Because everyone eats, so everyone thinks that they can write about food, which you could, you know, you can write about your experience in food. Anybody could do that.
Right.
Being able to contextualize it on a grander scale is where it gets tricky. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I mean, how would you recommend someone who's starting off, younger person who wants to get into it? I mean, would you suggest the same path of bugging editors and hunting people down, or do you think this? I mean. Is it even viable? Would you suggest they just start a blog and sort of do their own thing and try to create their own?
You know, I don't know. I don't even know if people really read blogs. You know, I have friends that go to like the Savor Blog Awards every year, and there's some great people locally even that have amazing blogs. You know, Fussy Little Blog has been around forever, and love them or hate them, like people still click on that website.
Yeah.
Alexandra Cooks is a local one. She wrote for Food 52. I think she's based in Niskayuna. Wins tons of awards, won a ton of awards for her new book. And she's blogging every day. But she's also, they both utilize social media. Daniel on Fussy Little Blog does all the Yelp stuff. And Allie does Instagram stories. And they bring in a ton of stuff. And I stink tremendously at all of that stuff. So I don't even know. And it gets a little, you know, I don't know where the line is. I'm still trying to figure out where the line is between promoting my work and being completely obnoxious. Because some people, I'm just like, just stop. There's this one writer who was with Bon Appetit. Now she kind of freelances for the New York Times and does stuff. And it's just like, you are so self-important. And it feels like it's worse in food media than anywhere else. And I don't know why, but maybe it's just because I'm watching it more.
It's that idea of taste.
Yeah.
Like some people get so touchy about food because it's like, you don't want to be told that like, because it's so important to what we do every day. Like we literally need it to survive. Right. And are eating multiple times a day. So you don't want somebody telling you like, oh, that's like so, you know, low class of you to be like indulging in that. And like, I can't believe that's part of your lifestyle. And so you don't.
Absolutely.
Like, it's so uncomfortable to be always have that in your face.
I put a question out on Facebook, like, finish the sentence. It's not the Super Bowl if I didn't eat, and then let people fill in the blank. And somebody wrote Doritos, and they're like, but I'm sure I can't say that around you. Like, you would look down on that. I'm like, no, like I'm not going to eat them every day. I don't really like Doritos, but I'm down with like sour cream and onion potato chips. Like, you know, it's if anybody who works in the food media looks down on a choice like that, they're kind of missing what their job should be about.
Right.
So, you know, if you want to be an arbiter of taste, go for it. But I'm not interested. Yeah. So
tell us a little bit about the cooking school. How did that come together?
I think it just came, you know, I never went to cooking school. I'm not classically trained in any sense. Everything that I've learned from either just trial and error at my house, learning how to make, you know, I do these pie classes, and that's become like a popular one. And I literally learned how to make pie just by making a pie every week for a year, because I was surrounded by like these fantastic pie makers in my life and totally took it for granted because they made it look so easy. Yeah. So my neighbor got a pie every week for a year and gained no weight. I don't understand. But he probably had one piece and threw it away. It was probably the first like 40 were complete garbage. They looked nice though. But I was in a contest that was being held at Different Drummers Kitchen. It was like a Homes Cook contest. And I just went and asked. I gathered up some moxie and was like, I didn't win. I think I got second place. I was just like, could I, like, how does somebody come to teach classes here? How do you teach? And they were like, just come up with an idea and do it. And so I did. And one class a quarter turned into one a month, turned into, several a month, turned into me taking over the cooking school. And now I operate it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Over the course of like 8 years.
It's
so
like Henry Rollins.
Slow global domination. And it's also really interesting too, because it's just another tactic to promote food. You can't really have an inclusive food system if people don't know how to cook. And it bothers me that the majority of the people that come in are affluent white people. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to figure out a way to fix that. But working currently, volunteering in soup kitchens and food pantries, and having worked in the past in those settings, it can be really hard. I know, I'm a single parent with a lot going on, and getting food on the table can be, sitting down and making a meal for my family can be really taxing. And I'm fortunate where I can take, a couple hours on a Sunday and chop all my garlic and, prep things and stuff like that. I can make a meal, but not everybody can, and it's finding ways to reach people where they already are to get them to do that. So, but thank you, affluent white people, because you help pay my mortgage. So I'm not dissing you. Please keep coming. I love you all. So it's great.
And hopefully you will be contributing to the magazine down the road, and we really look forward to that. It's exciting.
Yeah. Me too. Thank you.
And so let's talk about all the places people can read you and listen to you, and how they get in touch for the cooking school.
Yeah. The cooking school is called Albany Cooking School at Different Drummers Kitchen. So it's in Stuyvesant Plaza in the back corner. And you can go in and sign up, just differentdrummerskitchen.com. We have classes scheduled through the end of April right now, and we're scheduling into May. We've got some amazing stuff. Rick Orlando teaches for us. Caroline Barrett, who's another fantastic food writer, also busy working mother. The Sassos, who owned Sasso's Noodle House. Yeah. Another one bit the dust. So good. Yeah. Amazing sushi. They're fantastic people, but there's so many different things that you can teach there. We do a lot of kids camps, which is a big popular one. And I think people are afraid to give a kid something sharp, something hot. And it's like this power. It's really, the psychology of children is really interesting when you give them power, how they choose to use it. And when you give them power but also instill trust in them, they take it very seriously. There's always one or two kids who screw around and whatever, and then you just take, give them measuring flour, give them something else to do. But
my daughter has been transformed at grandmother's, my mother's house, who lives on a farm and cooks pies and makes us eat them. Because she helps make pies and cookies, and she will do the dishes at grandma's, and she's regimented at grandma's, but she won't do it at home. She's not empowered.
Right.
Funny.
Yeah, it is empowering, and I think that's like that in anything, just giving kids a little bit of confidence to go and do. So that's the cooking school. And then I write the Times Union, I think is probably where most people know me.
Yep.
And I also contribute to the Daily Gazette. And I do Food Fridays on WAMC. We did have a podcast that's now defunct, sadly. On WAMC called Watch, Read, Listen, Feed. So you can go find back episodes. It was basically four of us sitting and choosing a food, a movie, a book, and a piece of music to discuss, and then rating each other. And I always lost. I don't know why. I thought I had good taste, but apparently not to anybody else.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But it was really fun. The idea is now, there to take.
Yeah, you have time this week?
Right? It was fun. It was great. It was really fun. It was with Dave Hopper from WAMC, Jamel Mosley, who anybody who knows him knows he's like the coolest cat in the game. And Louise Hendry, who owns this amazing bookshop called Down in Denver Books out in Stephentown. That's this.
I need to get out there. I've heard things. I just
it's a dwelling entirely devoted to Jack Kerouac, and it's pretty. I mean, you can find books on anything, but everything that bookstore is, right down to the color of the paint on the house, is
That's funny.
Is a tribute to Jack Kerouac, which is pretty neat. There's a big portrait of him as you walk in. But so I also write for USA Today. I write for Eater and The Kitchen and all of those, Beer Advocate magazine, all that stuff. More in the works. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. I mean, writing about food is great. Writing about beer is even better. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. But I also write about other things too as they come up, because you can just get a little burnout. So I write a lot about baseball, a lot about polo and cricket. Yeah, sports that nobody else wants to write about. So that's kind of fun. Just cultural stuff, a lot of history. I try to write as much about history as I can to show my parents that that $80,000 for college actually did go somewhere. But yeah, so that's nice. My editor at USA Today, I think I mentioned to her that my parents don't actually think that I work. And so she's been sending the sections to my parents' house. She's been slowly filtering them over in hopes that maybe, I'll be legitimized in the eyes of my parents. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. And then just generally I'm on Twitter. I've almost stopped. I took some time off. I took 6 months off from social media, really, just to see. It's if I stop promoting my work, does it hamper my progress? And it hasn't really. I haven't really lost touch with the readership, because your obligation, I feel, as a journalist is always to the reader. It's to the truth and to the reader, and everything else is just superfluous. But somehow they were still there, hanging in, reading, reaching out, whatever. So it's nice to know that people are not just, I don't think it's anything particular about me. I think that people are just engaging in media, not just regurgitating things they find on social media.
Right. Yeah. It's refreshing to just read a newspaper.
It is. Yeah.
Hold a piece of paper in your hands.
Yeah. Except for the last 2 weeks, sadly, my Sunday papers have gone through the snowblower. Oh. So that's been fun. Oh my God. Yeah. It's been a little snowy the past few weeks. It's been a little cold. But so it's just heartening to know that people are actually, they're seeking it out. They're not just waiting for it to come to them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you.
Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.